The cashier held up the old military discount card and laughed. "Sir, this looks like it came from a cereal box. We need a real military ID." His voice was loud. Everyone in line could hear. The old veteran stood there, his hands shaking a little as he held his card. He wore a faded Marine jacket that had seen better days. He didn't say anything. He just stood there. Behind him, people looked away. They felt uncomfortable. The checkout scanner kept beeping. An older woman stared at the floor. A mother pulled her kid closer. The cashier rolled his eyes like he'd caught someone lying. The veteran's face showed quiet shame. But what this young cashier didn't know would change everything in the next 10 minutes. James Donovan was 68 years old. Every Thursday at 2 o'clock, he walked into this same grocery store. Same routine, same quiet smile, same faded Marine jacket that hung a bit too loose on his frame now. James never bought much. A small basket. Generic brands. Bread, milk, canned soup, instant coffee. Nothing fancy. He moved slowly through the aisles with a slight limp in his left leg. Old injury. He never talked about it. Earlier that day, he'd helped an elderly woman reach a cereal box from the top shelf. "Thank you, young man," she'd said, and he'd smiled like she'd given him a gift. At the entrance, he'd thanked the teenager collecting carts. "Appreciate you, son." The kid had barely looked up from his phone. James lived alone now. His wife, Margaret, had passed 3 years ago. These Thursday trips were more than errands. They were his connection to the world, a reason to shower, shave, put on the old jacket. The military discount wasn't about the $8 he'd save. It was about being seen, being remembered, being part of something that once meant everything. Other veterans wore hats with their unit numbers stitched across the front. They had bumper stickers and flag pins and stories they'd tell anyone who'd listen. James wasn't like that. His jacket had no patches anymore. They'd worn away years ago and he'd never replaced them. He blended into the background. He was a good man, the kind who'd give you his last dollar if you needed it. And right now, he stood at that checkout counter, holding a card that connected him to the best years of his life, while a stranger mocked him in front of everyone. This time cashier was new guy at store, not the one from whom he would pay the bill. The cashier's name was Tyler. He was maybe 25 and he'd had a bad day. His girlfriend had texted him that morning saying they needed to talk. His manager had yelled at him about his register being short yesterday. He was tired, angry, and looking for someone to take it out on. He held James's discount card between 2 fingers like it was garbage. "Dude, where'd you get this?" "A costume shop." He waved it in the air so everyone could see. People in the other lines turned to look. James's voice was quiet, calm. "It's my actual card, son, VA issued, from 1978. Tyler cut him off with a laugh. "Yeah, okay. Look, I need current military ID or you're paying full price. That's the rule." The line behind James had grown. 6 people now, 7, all watching. An older woman with gray hair stepped forward. "Young man, show some respect." "Can't you see?" "Ma'am, I'm just doing my job," Tyler snapped. "We can't let people commit fraud." "There are rules." "Fraud?" The word hung in the air like an accusation. James's face turned red. Not from anger, from shame, the kind that burns from the inside out. His hands started shaking as he reached for his wallet. "It's okay. I'll pay full price." "Tyler, what's going on?" The manager appeared, a middle-aged woman named Carol who usually smiled at James. Today she looked nervous, uncomfortable. Tyler explained like he was the victim. "This guy's trying to use a fake military discount card. I told him we need real ID." Carol glanced at James, then quickly away. She wouldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry, sir, but it is store policy. We need current identification for discounts." A younger man in line spoke up. He wore a Navy veteran cap. "Hey, I can vouch for him. That's a real card. Here, I'll show you mine." "Sir, this doesn't concern you," Tyler said, his voice sharp. The beeping wouldn't stop. Scanner after scanner in the other lanes, beep, beep, beep. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, too bright, too harsh. James could feel every pair of eyes on him. The young mother covered her son's ears like witnessing cruelty was worse than hearing it. The older woman who defended him looked close to tears. James's hands trembled as he put his wallet back in his jacket pocket. His groceries sat there on the belt: bread, milk, soup, coffee. He couldn't afford full price. Not on his fixed income. Not this month. I'll come back another time. His voice barely made it past his throat. He turned to leave. No groceries. No dignity. Just the weight of 30 pairs of eyes watching an old Marine walk away in shame. But he didn't make it to the door. The revelation begins, planting clues. James was halfway to the exit, his head down, when the automatic doors slid open. A tall man in an expensive gray suit walked in. He looked out of place in the Thursday afternoon grocery crowd. Mid-50s, confident posture, the kind of bearing that came from years of leadership. He wasn't here to shop. He was passing through town, visiting family, killing time before dinner. But the moment he stepped inside, something made him stop. At the checkout, Tyler was still going on about it. His voice carried across the store. "I mean, Carol, we can't just accept every old card people dig out of their attics. What's next? Expired coupons from 1975? He laughed at his own joke. Nobody else did. The man in the suit stood near the entrance, watching. His face changed. Confusion at first. Then his eyes narrowed. He was focused on James now, the old veteran near the door adjusting his worn jacket. Something about the way James moved. The limp, the posture, the jacket itself. The man's hand drifted to his chest unconsciously, like he was touching metals that weren't there anymore. Like a reflex from another life. He pulled out his phone and stepped to the side. His voice was low but urgent. "Yeah, it's Hayes. I need you to do something for me." Pull a service record. Donovan, James Donovan. 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, early 80s. Beirut deployment? He listened. "I know it's unusual, just do it." "I'll explain later." Back in the checkout line, the younger veteran with the navy cap was whispering to the woman next to him. "You see that jacket? The stitching on the shoulder seam? What about it?" "That's 2nd Battalion insignia. Old Marine Corps. That's not something you buy at a surplus store. That's the real thing." She looked at James, then back at her husband. "You think he actually served?" "I know he did." Near the exit, James stopped to adjust his jacket against the cold air coming through the doors. When he pulled the collar up, something showed for just a second. A faded ribbon sewn into the inside lining. Most people wouldn't notice it. Most people wouldn't know what it meant. But the man in the suit saw it. His jaw tightened. His eyes went cold and sharp. Not angry. Something else. Something like certainty. He started walking toward James, not fast, not slow, steady and deliberate. Tyler spotted him and immediately switched into his customer service voice. Big smile. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you find anything today?" The man didn't even glance at him. His eyes stayed locked on James. The store got quieter. The scanners kept beeping, but everything else seemed to fade. People sensed something was happening. They stopped talking. They watched. The man was getting closer now. James must have felt someone approaching because he turned slightly, still near the door. And then the man spoke. One word, clear and unmistakable. "Gunny?" The turning point, public recognition. James turned slowly. His eyes went wide. The color drained from his face. "Lieutenant Hayes?" The man in the suit stood perfectly still. His voice came out rough, like something was caught in his throat. "Gunnery Sergeant Donovan, sir." And then, right there in the middle of the grocery store, this man in the expensive civilian suit snapped to attention. Rigid. Perfect. His right hand came up in a slow, deliberate salute. Not casual. Ceremonial. The kind of salute that carries weight. The store went completely silent. Tyler's smirk disappeared. His face went pale. The general held that salute. 5 seconds, 10, waiting. His hand didn't waver. James stood frozen. Then something kicked in. Muscle memory from 40 years ago. His back straightened. His trembling hand rose. He returned the salute, and for a moment he wasn't a 68-year-old man being humiliated at a checkout counter. He was a Marine again. The general dropped his salute. Then he stepped forward and pulled James into an embrace. Not a polite hug. A brothers-in-arms grip. Tight, fierce. The kind that says, "I owe you my life." When the general spoke again, his voice was thick, shaking. "You saved my life in Beirut. October 1983, the barracks bombing. I was a 22-year-old lieutenant buried under concrete and steel. You pulled me out, carried me 2 miles through sniper fire with a shattered leg. I would have died in that rubble." James's eyes filled with tears. "You were just a kid. I couldn't leave you. You had 3 broken ribs and a fractured femur. The medic said you shouldn't have been able to walk, let alone carry someone." The general's voice got louder now. He wanted everyone to hear. This man earned a Silver Star for valor. He was medically retired after his injuries. He gave everything. The general turned toward Tyler. His voice dropped. Cold, command authority that made grown men stand straighter. "This man is a decorated Marine combat veteran who sacrificed his body so people like you could have the freedom to stand here and disrespect him." Tyler stammered. I didn't. Sorry, you didn't know, because you didn't ask. You didn't look. You assumed." The general's eyes were ice. "Do better." He pulled out his phone again. "I made a call when I walked in. There are 3 Marines from the regional base arriving in about..." He checked his watch. 2 minutes. "They're bringing something." As if on cue, a Marine Corps vehicle pulled up outside, visible through the big front windows. Navy blue with gold lettering. 2 Marines in full dress blues stepped out. They walked through the automatic doors, carrying something between them. A shadow box. Polished wood and glass. Inside were medals, ribbons, citations. James's service record preserved and honored. The general had made the call. Had them pull the records. Had them bring it here. The entire store watched in absolute silence as the general took the shadow box. He opened it carefully and removed a single ribbon. The Silver Star, faded but unmistakable. He pinned it onto James's old jacket. Right over the heart. James couldn't speak. Tears rolled down his face. The older woman behind him in line was crying too. So was Carol, the manager. The young mother held her son close, whispering, "Remember this. Always remember this." Phones came out. People recorded, not for gossip, for proof that goodness still existed. The general stepped back and saluted again. The 2 Marines in dress blues saluted. Then the younger veteran in the Navy cap saluted. Then another man in line. Then another, and then the applause started, slow at first. Then building. The entire store erupted. Clapping, cheering, crying. Everyone except Tyler. He stood frozen behind his register, face red with shame, unable to move or speak. Justice had arrived. And it was beautiful. The applause faded slowly. People wiped their eyes, put their phones away. The moment settled into something quieter. And then James did something no one expected. He walked toward Tyler. The young cashier's face went white. He stepped back against the register, bracing himself. But James didn't come with anger. He came with his hand extended. "Son, you didn't know." His voice was gentle, tired but kind. "We don't wear our service for recognition. We wear it because we can't take it off. It's part of who we are, even when no one's looking." Tyler's face crumpled. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean... His voice broke. He was crying now, young, scared, ashamed. James put a hand on his shoulder. "Make it right by treating the next person with the respect you'd want for yourself. That's all any of us can do." The general stood a few feet away, watching. He nodded slowly. This was why he'd saluted, not just for what James had done in Beirut, but for who he still was. Carol, the manager, stepped forward. Her eyes were red. "Mr. Donovan, your groceries today are free. And from now on, every time you shop here, it's on us." James shook his head gently. "That's not necessary. Please. Let us do this." He hesitated, then nodded. Just today. That's enough. The general helped James gather his bags. As they walked toward the door, he pulled out his phone. Give me your number, Gunny. James recited it and the general typed it in. You're coming to the base next week. I want you to speak to my Marines. They need to know who they're following. They need to hear what real service looks like. James's voice was quiet. I'm not much of a speaker. You don't have to be. Just tell them what you told that kid. That's enough. At the door, the younger veteran with the Navy cap approached. He extended his hand. Gunny, thank you. For your service. For real, they shook, firm, respectful. A mother knelt down to her son. Remember this day, baby. Remember what you saw. Another customer, an older man, hugged James briefly. Semper Fi, brother. Outside, the two Marines in dress blues stood by their vehicle. As James walked past, they saluted one more time. He returned it, shoulders straight. Tyler watched from inside the store, through the glass, as the Marines drove away. He would never forget this day either. James drove home slowly. The shadow box sat in the passenger seat where Margaret used to sit. His groceries were in the back. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. The most powerful people often speak the quietest. The greatest heroes rarely wear their medals. And respect costs nothing, but its absence costs everything. It's easy to judge by what we see. A faded card, an old jacket, a quiet voice. We make assumptions in seconds and move on with our lives. But James Donovan didn't need validation. He never asked for it. He just wanted to buy his groceries and go home. Tyler learned something that day. That authority doesn't come from a uniform or a loud voice. It comes from sacrifice, from character, from the choices you make when no one's watching. General Hayes never forgot the man who saved his life. 40 years later, he still remembered. 'Cause true leadership isn't about rank. It's about honoring the people who paved the way. Millions of veterans walk among us. They carry stories they'll never tell. They ask for nothing. They blend into the background of our everyday lives, shopping for groceries, mowing their lawns, sitting quietly in diners. That evening, James sat at his kitchen table. The shadow box rested beside Margaret's photo. He picked up the phone and called his daughter. When she answered, his voice was different, lighter. Hi, sweetheart. You won't believe what happened today. If this story reminded you to look deeper, to show respect, to honor the quiet heroes around you, share it. And in the comments, tell us about a veteran or unsung hero in your life. Their stories deserve to be remembered. The faded military discount card sat in a new frame now, right next to the shadow box, right where it belonged.